Ever seen those dashing soldiers in ridiculously fancy uniforms, with wings on their backs or leopard skins draped over their shoulders? Chances are you were looking at a hussar, but these guys were more than just pretty faces on the battlefield. They were one of the most effective and feared light cavalry units in history. And their story starts in the heart of medieval Hungary. So, let's rewind the clock to the 15th century. Hungary is in a tough spot, constantly dealing with raids from the massive Ottoman Empire to the south. They needed a new kind of soldier, someone fast, agile, and able to hit hard and disappear before the enemy knew what was happening. Enter the Hussars. The name itself might come from the Serbian word hussar for bandit, or maybe the Hungarian word HC, meaning 20, because 1 in every 20 men was drafted for cavalry service. Whatever the origin, their purpose was clear: be the eyes, ears, and sharp teeth of the army. Unlike the heavily armored knights of Western Europe, who were like walking tanks, the early Hungarian Hussars were all about speed. They rode swift horses and carried a long lance, a curved saber perfect for slashing from horseback, and maybe a bow. Their main job wasn't to charge headfirst into a wall of enemy infantry. Instead, they were masters of scouting, raiding supply lines, and chasing down fleeing enemies. Think of them as the special forces of their day. They'd harass the enemy, disrupt their plans, and create chaos, paving the way for the main army to deliver the finishing blow. One of the most legendary figures to champion the Hussars was King Matthias Corvinus of Hungary. He wasn't just a king. He was a brilliant military strategist. In the 1450s, he created the famous Black Army, a professional standing army that was one of the best in Europe, and the Hussars were its star players. Under his leadership, they refined their tactics and became an indispensable part of Hungarian military success against both the Ottomans and their European rivals. But the Hussar story doesn't stay in Hungary. As their reputation for effectiveness grew, other nations started to take notice. They thought, hey, we need some of those. The first country to really adopt and adapt the Hussar model was Poland, or more accurately, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And oh boy, did they take it to a whole new level. This is where you get the famous Winged Hussars. Now, let's clear something up. Did they actually fly? No, of course not. But they did wear these incredible wooden frames on their backs, decorated with eagle, swan, or ostrich feathers. Historians still debate the exact purpose of these wings. Were they to make a terrifying, unearthly noise as they charged, spooking the enemy's horses? Were they to protect the riders from sabers or totolassos? Or were they simply a psychological weapon, making the soldiers look larger, more intimidating, and almost supernatural? The answer is probably a bit of all three. Imagine a few thousand of these guys thundering towards you, wings howling in the wind. You'd be terrified. But the Polish Hussars were different from their Hungarian predecessors in another key way. They weren't light cavalry anymore. Over time, they became heavy shock cavalry. They wore more armor, carried an extra long lance called a kopia, and their main job was to shatter enemy formations with a devastating charge. They were the ultimate campaigners of the 17th century battlefield. Their most famous moment came in 1683 at the Battle of Vienna. An enormous Ottoman army was besieging the city, and all seemed lost. Then, leading a combined European force, Polish King Jan III Sobieski led one of the largest cavalry charges in history, with thousands of winged hussars at its heart. They smashed through the Ottoman lines, lifted the siege, and effectively saved Vienna. It was the peak of their glory. As military technology and tactics evolved, so did the Hussars. By the 18th century, the era of the all-or-nothing heavy cavalry charge was fading. Firearms became more accurate and faster to reload, making a packed group of horsemen a tempting target. So, the Hussar concept swung back towards its light cavalry roots. Countries across Europe, from France and Prussia to Russia and Britain, all established their own Hussar regiments. And this is where the style really kicked in. The 18th and 19th century Hussar uniform is iconic. It was directly inspired by traditional Hungarian dress. You have the dolman, a short, braided jacket, and worn over the left shoulder, the pelisse, another jacket lined with fur. This wasn't just for show. Wearing the extra jacket slung over the shoulder could offer some protection from a sword cut. They wore tight-fitting breeches and tall riding boots, and on their heads they often wore a shako, a tall, cylindrical hat, or a fur busby. It was flashy, it was colourful, and it was designed to be intimidating and project an image of daring and swagger. This look became synonymous with a certain kind of soldier. Hussars were seen as dashing, brave, and maybe a little reckless. They cultivated an attitude of bravado. Their roles on the battlefield were still vital, scouting deep into enemy territory, screening the army's movements, raiding, and pursuing defeated foes. They were the original ride-or-die cavalry. Think of the Napoleonic Wars. Every major army had its Hussar regiments, and their exploits, both real and exaggerated, filled the pages of history. French Hussars under Napoleon's Marshal Murat, known for his flamboyant uniforms, became legendary for their boldness. Even as we move into the 19th and early 20th centuries, Hussars were still around. You can see them in paintings of the Crimean War, like the infamous charge of the Light Brigade, which included British Hussar regiments. They were present in the American Civil War, with some Union and Confederate cavalry units adopting the Hussar style and name. They were a symbol of a certain romantic ideal of warfare, of courage and dash on horseback. But the cold, hard reality of modern warfare was catching up. The machine gun and barbed wire of World War I made the traditional cavalry charge suicidal. The horse, which had dominated the battlefield for millennia, was being replaced by the tank and the aeroplane. While some Hussar regiments saw action in the early stages of the Great War, their role was tragically limited. The age of the cavalryman was over. So, is that the end of the story? Not quite. The Hussar legacy lives on. Today, many modern armies around the world maintain armored or ceremonial units that carry the Hussar name and traditions. For example, the British Army has the Queen's Royal Hussars, an armored regiment driving Challenger 2 tanks. France, Canada, the Netherlands, and many other nations have similar units. They may have traded their horses for horsepower and their sabres for cannons, but they carry the name as a tribute to that long, proud history of speed, daring, and flamboyant style. From the plains of Hungary to the gates of Vienna, from the battlefields of Napoleon to the armored columns of today, the Hussar has been a constant presence in military history. They were more than just soldiers. They were an idea of swift action, bold courage, and undeniable flair. They proved that sometimes the most effective weapon on the battlefield isn't just brute force, but speed, surprise, and a whole lot of style. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this ride through history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. Let me know in the comments which historical military unit you'd like to see covered next. See you in the next one.